afternoon, committee members, council officers, members of the public. Welcome to the Planning Committee meeting of the 23rd of September 2025. We'll just start off with some general introductions of ourselves. So I'll be the chairman for the Planning Committee, Councillor Arshad Afsar. If I can ask for everybody from my right to press the mic and introduce yourselves, please.
Good afternoon, Naomi Perry, Planning Manager.
Afternoon, Alan Harvey, Principal Planning Officer.
Emily Summers, Planning Officer.
Good afternoon, Mark Evans, Staffordshire County Council Highways.
Good afternoon, Mick Huckabee, representing Branston.
Good afternoon, Councillor Monica Holton.
Good afternoon, Councillor Sheila McKiernan for Shobnall.
Good afternoon, Councillor Michael Slater, Horlingham and Outwards.
Good afternoon, Councillor Alison Legg.
Thomas Dairy, Head of Regeneration and Development.
Councillor Beth George.
Councillor Colin Whittaker, Blythe Ward.
Councillor Jackie Jones.
Councillor Chris Smedley.
Councillor Liz Bullock.
Emily Thomas, Democratic Services Officer.
Daniel Corkett, Trainee Solicitor.
Akil Adnan, Planning Solicitor.
Thank you. Just before we move into the agenda for today's meeting, we'll just have some housekeeping rules. So just to remind everybody present that the meeting is being broadcast live via YouTube and the recording will be archived for future viewings. If I could ask for all councillors and officers to ensure when they speak they press the mic on and switch it off when they're finished, please. Reminder to everybody to switch off the mobile phones. We are not expecting any test fire drills today, so if you do hear the fire alarm, if you can make your way out the way you came in outside onto the car park. Polite notice not to call out when individuals are speaking, as it will prevent others from hearing the debate. Moving on to the agenda for today. Agenda item 1. Do we have any apologies for absence?
No apologies.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 2. Any declarations of interest? So I will just kick-start this one. I've received an email from Colin McLean, as I'm sure quite a few of the, if not all the committee members have received. I understand that the case officers also received a copy of the same email and it has been summarised in the update report. So if I can just see a show of hands from everybody who's received a copy of the email, please. Thank you. And is there any further comments anybody would like to add to what I've said, or are you happy with what's been stated? Thank you. I can't see any further comments to be added. So moving on to agenda item number 3. Would members please accept the minutes from the last meeting held on the 29th of July 2025? Yep. So can I have a seconder? Councillor Jones. Thank you. Show of hands, all those in favour. Any abstentions? Any against? No. Thank you. Agenda item number 4. Do we have any urgent business to be brought to the committee's attention? No urgent business. Moving on to agenda item number 5. We have one planning application today to consider, which is planning application number P2024-01125, variations of conditions 3, 5, 6 and 41 of the approved hybrid application, reference P2021-00868, Site address, land bound by Tutbury Road, Rollston Road, Hareage Lane, Burton-on-Trent. I'll just pass over to the case officer to present the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So members and probably many of the members of the public will know that this application is coming back to committee. It was deferred at the July committee and we'll go through it. There are a number of applications on this site, and obviously I'm conscious that that it might get a little bit confusing, so I'm going to really just stick to the what's now going to be in front of members. So hopefully that's what you wish to have, rather than revisit everything. But I'll try and put everything in context as best I can, but trying to keep it as focused and to the point. So as the Chair said, this application is a Section 73 application, so it's effectively a variation of an existing approval that dated back to 2023. So that comes under Outline Planning Permission P201-00868. So that relates to outline planning permission for up to 500 dwellings, specialist residential old elderly care accommodation and associated works. And then there was also a full application as part of that, and that was for the access points and the spine road. As the July committee report also pointed out, conditions 1 and 40 would need amending if planning permission is granted today to update the approval dates. Also, as the Chair mentioned, there's an update sheet. Obviously, I'm conscious there's speakers, and just to confirm that that update sheet incorporates the a summary of the comments in the letter that was distributed round to members. So, the application site, which we will all be familiar with now. So, if I can just briefly say, it relates to 20 hectares of currently agricultural land at the northwestern edge of Burton-upon-Trent, and the site predominantly is agricultural grasslands, as also we're aware that some works have started in terms of the construction of the access points on Rollston Road and on Tutbury Road. Just to quickly go through some photographs. So we're looking at the site now from Hareage Lane in winter, the view towards Rollston Road, view from Hareage Lane again towards the main part of the site, from Wilson Way, views from Tutbury Road where it's more open, and then further views from Tutbury Road looking back towards and across towards Rollston Road. As I said, some works have started and obviously continued over time, but this was from when we went out on site in July. Nice sunny weather. So, the original outline planning permission, as set out, related to the 500 affordable and market housing, also a local centre, some 5.46 hectares of green and blue infrastructure, the specialist accommodation for the elderly, and new junction off Hareage Lane, which would serve a local centre and community car park, which was to be delivered after the occupation of the 50th dwelling. So there was an illustrative master plan that came with the 2023 approval. So just to again familiarise members with things. Hareage Lane access in the bottom corner there, and then you've got the local centre next to that, and the specialist accommodation for the elderly was up on Tutbury Road. The spine road that runs from Tutbury Road to Rollston Road is marked out in yellow there. So the 2023 approval also had the land use plan. So again, the local centre's clearly marked there. That was on Hareage Lane, that's in yellow, and the specialist accommodation for the elderly off Tutbury Road. The movement plan So this is the approved scheme, and this is now quite important to the rest of the debate, because necessarily the applicants have gone back to this similar format, so we'll go through this. So the originally approved scheme had the local centre, and then it had a point to the north of the local centre where one-way vehicular access to the north. So Harehead Lane was only to serve the local centre and its car park and a small area of residential development in the bottom left-hand corner there. And that was shown on the illustrated master plan to be approximately 3 houses. There was also works to the Bivham Lane Ralston Road junction, which formed part of the original approval. This still forms part of the current scheme. There's separately some work being done with the county highways and the developers to discharge condition 34, but that's not actually in front of us today. And now my key stopped. There we go. So what we've got now is what I've outlined in red is the change to the scheme. So instead of what we had in front of you in July, the applicants have gone back to a process whereby it's going to be a one-way access to the north of the local centre. So it's better to show this in graphic form. So just in terms of the full application element, there's a slight alignment of the road, which members will be familiar from last time. It's barely discernible. Now, in terms of the proposed land use plan, again, it stays as members saw in July. So the proposal is still to move the specialist elderly accommodation towards the Harehead Lane access, and then to replace the care home area with residential on Tutbury Road. Now, this is the change. So when this application came to committee in July, the developers proposed that the southern area of the site be served by a two-way junction off Harehead Lane. Which members obviously debated at the time, and the July committee, they deferred for the developers to give further consideration regarding the access and volume of traffic generated onto Harehead Lane, including consideration of routing traffic one way to the north to the link to the Spine Road, to review the traffic surveys which underline the traffic modelling to reflect the up-to-date situation on Harehead Lane, and thirdly, to investigate the potential for a traffic regulation order along Harehead Lane as part of off-site highway works in relation to the impact of the development. Now, as set out in the committee report, the applicant's response has been to revert to the access arrangements approved under the original outline approval, subject to 6 additional dwellings, so that's 9 in total, having access and egress from Harehead Lane. So in graphic form, what you're going to have is that you've got Harehead Lane Junction here, you've got the local centre and the community car park, and you've got the up to 9 dwellings in that bottom corner. Now, those parts of the development will have access to and from Harehead Lane. After that, there'll be a point, as per the outline approval previously, whereby access will only be available northwards towards the link road from Harehedge Lane. So in terms of the revised siting of the care home, you will only be able to access the care home by vehicular traffic from Harehedge Lane. Pedestrians and cyclists will be able to access two ways, but vehicular traffic will only be able to go northwards beyond this point. So that's exactly the same arrangement as was approved in 2023 in terms of the location of the one-way and two-way system. So the applicant's position is that they reverted to the access arrangements as I've explained, originally approved, and therefore conclude, given the TRIP rating for those 6 dwellings, that the additional works submitted as part of the Section 73 application covering the modelling work is now considered to be redundant, as the proposals are now largely in line with the position agreed at the hybrid permission stage in 2023. The applicants therefore consider that the proposal, which reverts to the previously approved arrangement, should not be subject to any further modelling. The Section 73 submission documents have been amended to reflect this, and these are what I'm showing members at this presentation. The applicant therefore considers that the reasons for deferral have been sufficiently addressed by their amendments, and the proposed access of Harehedge Lane remains as approved and should not be subject to further debate by members. Now, of course, as officers, we don't agree with the last point. I mean, quite rightly, it comes to committee, and officers that get asked the questions about it, and obviously Mark Evans is here from the County Council. But that's the applicant's position on the application. So just to wrap up things, I'm just going through the other aspects of the case, which is there was a change to the green and blue infrastructure, which reflects the reserve matters application that the applicants have also submitted but hasn't come to committee yet, because this application would have to be approved in the first place. Now, members obviously went through this last time in terms of the consultation responses, and I'm going to just briefly say that there was no objection from any of the statutory undertakers. And in terms of this revised scheme, the County Highway Authority have raised no objections, considering that it wouldn't result in any significant material change over and above the approved scheme. In terms of consultations, the Highway Authority and local residents were consulted. The Parish Council's positions were as set out in the July committee. So there was no representations from Outwards or Stretton, and Rolleston Parish Council requested a change to the speed limit and the construction management plan not to travel through Rolleston. And the Rolleston Civic Trust were also similarly concerned about the speed and in terms of the construction management plan. As was explained by officers at the time, those proposals aren't changing, so therefore they were not subject to any proposals for change by the applicants either. In terms of the objections or representations that were received in terms of the original scheme, there was 16 local residents raised objections, and they included concerns about whether there was a need for a shop, about impacts on residential amenities, highway safety, which obviously remains pertinent, flooding and drainage, visual amenity, open space, biodiversity and tree impacts, concern about the lack of a proper engagement, community involvement by the developer, and no mitigation on local infrastructure. Now, in terms of the revised scheme that has been presented today, last night there was received an email from Councillor Bullock, who raised concern about the potential loss of a bus stop with the off-site works. Now again, whilst this doesn't form part of the current application, we've looked into this, and Mark will be able to explain in greater detail. But essentially, when it comes round to the works being done on Ralston Road, Bitham Lane, there isn't a loss of a bus stop, there'd be a relocation of a bus stop. In terms of local residents, there's been 9 letters of objection in relation to this revised scheme. Those concerns and objections relate to the principle of the development, where it's been believed that the nursing home should be retained in its original location on Tuckbury Road. In terms of residential amenity, that there's likely to be an increase in noise and disturbance, including traffic noise, and in antisocial behaviour. In terms of highway impacts, there's going to be an increase in car use and traffic accidents. The applicant's justifications for not exploring a TRO are unsurprisingly weak, and the fact that the roads has already reached capacity. There are further concerns raised about the accuracy of traffic modelling, i.e. an underestimation of traffic levels, and that's based on a third-party survey work, and that's recorded in the update sheet. And there's also questions raised whether the originally proposed off-site works are still going to be undertaken, in relation to which the answer is yes, they are, and they are ongoing because they're subject to discharge of condition. In terms of visual amenity, there's a concern about out of character. In terms of open space, concerns about loss of hedges and trees, which the developers have already done works, and the need for mitigation. There's also a concern about lack of school places in the Section 106 agreement, although that's hasn't changed because that's the position of the County Education Authority. We're all very familiar with the relevant development plan policies in the local plan. There's the 2 neighbourhood plans and the supplementary planning documents. So the application was brought back to committee, and the deferral was based solely on highway safety issues. So therefore, by the nature at the last committee, the issue of principal design, historic environment and flood risk impacts were debated, and no issue was raised. So as set out in the officer report, no statutory undertakers have raised concerns on any of those issues. Similarly, on amenity, these are outlined submissions, and they demonstrate that the scheme can be progressed without necessarily giving rise to impacts on residential amenities. The reserve matters stage, which is a separate application which would come forward in due course, deals with the detailed matters of the siting of buildings and the relationship with existing residential dwellings. This application just talks about the uses and where they will be relocated or located. So in terms of the crux of the matter is, in terms of highway safety, the County Council have reviewed the submitted documents on this revised scheme. They've looked at it and concluded that the scheme as revised will not materially significantly impact on the surrounding highway network over and above the extant approval under application 2021-00868, which is the approved scheme from 2023. So again, in terms of the other issues, biodiversity and open sports, again, there's no open space and sports, there's no objections raised by any statutory undertakers. Bringing things all to a conclusion, the Section 106 agreement to the original 2023 approval will automatically be secured should this scheme be approved by a deed of variation. So the committee report conclusion. So, as set out in the officer report, the recommendation on this revised scheme is it be approved with the conditions, as per the report, with one change as per the update sheet. So that relates to condition 2, and condition 2 relates to the bringing forward of the reserve matters submissions. by their phasing. And that provides for an additional paragraph and wording that the details of any layout shall provide that no more than 9 dwellings are able to secure egress onto Hare Hedge Lane. So that accurately reflects what the applicants have submitted and are asking members to deliberate upon. So to bring everything to that conclusion, the differences between what we're looking at now is we're looking at the differences between the approved scheme of 2023 and this new proposal. And the differences are that the nursing care accommodation is going in the southern area of the site. There's a slight alignment of the road, and then there's a removal of a footpath on the right-hand side. In terms of the actual capacity of the Hare Hedge Lane junction to serve the development, the master plan at the 2023 stage showed 3 dwellings to be served with access and egress of Hare Hedge Lane. The applicants are now proposing that up to 9 houses have access and egress to Hare Hedge Lane. So that's an increase in 6 number dwellings. That's my conclusion.
Thank you. We have 2 speakers on this item, so if I can ask for Steve Louch to come forward. When you're ready, press the mic, please, and it'll be 3 minutes from the time you start.
My wife and I are the proud owners of Najallion Barn, which is located on Hare Hedge Lane and is a predominantly single-storey property of approximately 125 years old, previously considered by this very planning committee as being of historical importance back in 2017. We wish to formally object to the proposals put forward by Homes England and Barratt Homes due to the severely negative, overbearing impact upon ourselves and our home. The proposed location of the temporary car park is immediately adjacent to our western boundary, with no provision for boundary treatment to protect the Najallion Barn from intrusion, antisocial behaviour, environmental nuisance and pollution caused during the construction phase and subsequent usage. This could easily be resolved by continuing the already proposed 2.4 metre brick-built wall on the western boundary to its conclusion with Hare Hedge Lane and a green buffer. Once the site is opened, security of the northern and western sides of the Najallion Barn needs to be maintained. Currently, the site as a whole is protected by natural hawthorn hedging on the site exterior boundaries, with no access to the fields unless via the farm. However, the barn itself only has post and rail fencing. We request that the above-mentioned boundary treatments on both northern and western boundaries are included as pre-start conditions to the approval of this application. Furthermore, this will also help to mitigate against the extreme visual and environmental impact on the barn and ourselves once construction works commence in the adjacent fields. The previously submitted response to statutory consultee responses May 2025.1.4 by Staffordshire Police also highlights the requirement to protect homes from the development. The position and type of the whole development surrounding our home does not meet policy SP24 of the East Staffordshire Local Plan, nor the requirements of SP7, and I quote, "The proposal will not adversely affect the amenities of occupiers of neighbouring dwellings for the following reason. The juxtaposition of the proposal in relation to neighbouring properties is such that it will not have an adverse impact on occupiers of those properties by way of loss of light or privacy or by being overbearing. Development that respects the environmental and historic environment character of its rural surroundings. Due consideration has also been given to the submissions of the local residents in relation to the visual and residential impacts of the proposals. Proposals are designed to protect the amenity of the occupiers of residential properties nearby and any future occupiers of the development through good design and landscaping. Whilst we accept that change is inevitable, the requirements of the Najallion Barn are being dismissed by the developer, and we request that changes are made to the proposal so that it is protected and historical importance retained. Without amendment, the submitted plans will have a significant effect upon us and our property for the rest of our natural lives." Thank you.
Thank you. If I can ask for the second speaker, Gina Winter, please, to come forward. Again, when you're ready, just press the mic, please, and it's be 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Gina Winter. I'm a planning consultant at Savills representing the applicant. At the committee meeting on 29th of July, my colleague spoke to you about the importance of this Section 73 application, enabling the delivery of the Reserve Matters scheme, an exemplar development and the first of its kind in this country. I'll not repeat these comments again, but I urge you to have the strategic importance of this scheme in your minds as you debate this application today. Time is of the essence, and the applicant has been working hard with your planning officers and statutory consultees to progress these applications as swiftly as possible to ensure that the scheme remains the first of its kind. The Section 73 application was deferred by committee on 3 highways grounds around the proposed restricted two-way access off Harehedge Lane. Following the committee, the applicant has decided to revert back to the approved outline scheme, proposing a one-way access off Harehedge Lane with the exception of the local centre and 9 dwellings. As a result of this, modelling work is not required, nor are there any additional improvements or works required to Harehedge Lane. These matters have already been approved and should not be reopened for debate. The position has been confirmed by our highways experts and the council's own highways experts at the County Council. So we request that the committee listen to these specialists in their confirmation that there are no highways reasons to justify any further delay in determining this application. With the Harehedge Lane now as approved, the only other key amendments are the change in the care home location and some alterations to the internal pedestrian cycle links. On the care home design, Design Midlands, an independent panel, agreed that the location is better suited to the development given the close proximity to the local centre and urban edge of the development. The design of the care home will be presented to members as part of the Reserve Matters scheme. In relation to cycle and pedestrian links, these have been amended to align with the Reserve Matters scheme. At the last meeting, one member queried why the footpath along the eastern edge of the site has been removed. And there's a few reasons for this, but primarily it was to ensure the protection of a historic hedgerow along the eastern boundary. And there's already an existing footpath along Rolleston Road for residents to use. And so the revised route through the centre of that eastern parcel will be better surveilled for pedestrians than what was previously indicated. In summary, we believe there are not sufficient reasons today to delay determining this application. Your planning and highways officers are happy with the amendments, and their expert opinion should be at the forefront of your minds when determining this scheme today. I'm happy to take any questions should you have any. In fact, I implore you to ask us any questions, as we might be able to provide some comfort if you still have any concerns. I'm also joined by our highways consultant and a representative from Barrett David Wilson, so we can respond to any queries if needed. And just to touch on the comments regarding Julian Barn, those have been considered in full as part of the Reserve Matters application that will be before you in due course. So from our point of view, that's not a point of debate for today, as the application doesn't propose any changes to that element of the scheme as approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. If you can just turn the mic off and thank you. Thank you. I've just got indication from the planning officer just wanting to come in before we open the floor up for debate.
Yes, Chair. I just wanted to clarify again to members that the points made by the gentleman from the Dajala Barn are relating specifically to the impact of the development in terms of overlooking impacts in terms of location of dwellings, etc. That does form part of the Reserve Matters application, and what we're dealing with in front of us is the uses as displayed on the land use plan. There's not a defined, there's no boundary treatments as part of this application, there's no location or scale of development being proposed as part of that application. That wholly falls within the Reserve Matters process and will come to committee in due course, but that can only happen at any point once an application, the 73, has been approved or otherwise.
Thank you. Just open the floor up for debate to committee members. I've got Councillor McKiernan wanting to come in.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask a question because I've come here today slightly confused about the revision. I wasn't here on the panel in 2023, and given there was so much discussion and unease about the changes last time, I'd like to ask why the developers thought it necessary to bring them if the previous ones were already approved. I just find myself confused as to how we're in the situation we've arrived at now, when it could have been avoided, it seems.
Thank you. I'll just get that answered by the planning officer.
Chair, as outlined, the application for the section 73 proposes a number of changes, and that's the alignment of the link road, the removal of the footway to the right-hand side of the development, the relocation of the specialist accommodation. These are all fundamental changes to the scheme, as well as providing for the original was 3 dwellings, and this is up to 9 dwellings. So that specifically is why it's back in front of members, because the developers wish to change those aspects of it.
Did you want to come back in, Councillor McKinnon?
I think I was asking why the changes in July were made.
Well, the changes to the scheme in July were the developers' proposals to a more substantial change, which obviously members weren't happy with. So they've gone away and they've changed it to what you have now got in front of you. So they're asking us to determine a different scheme from what you saw in July to mitigate your concerns. That's the reason why they've changed it now.
Yeah, my comment was that could have been avoided if we'd perhaps stuck to the original scheme. Nevertheless, I think my concerns last time were about egress onto Hare Hedge Lane, and it seems now from what they're saying that there's only going to be 9 houses worth coming out onto Hare Hedge Lane. Can I just check that the staff and visitors from the care home won't be coming out onto Hare Hedge Lane?
Yes, that's correct. Because of the position of the one-way system, so you'll be only able to access northwards from this point. Then that means that anybody who wants to access the care home would be able to come off Hare Hedge Lane, but not come back on, because that's where that point there is. That will stop access coming southwards. So, and we also built in that the figure of the up to 9 dwellings into that condition too, as well as a fail-safe for members.
Thank you. Do we have any other committee members wanting to come into the debate? Councillor Whittaker.
Yeah, just to ask a question, how that will the access to the northern part, the one way, is that going to just police by signage, or is that it? I'm just wondering whether any of the residents sort of close by will just nip through, sort of thing. That's the only.
Yes, Councillor, it's a good and legitimate question. I mean, it was a question that was discussed at the 2023 committee, because obviously it's the same arrangement, and there's a provision in the Section 106 agreement for a traffic regulation order. So there'll be a design agreed with the county council to prevent access coming southwards. And in terms of so the TR, so if anybody did do that, obviously it would be a violation of a traffic regulation order in the same way as any one-way street is.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Councillor McKinnon, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, it's a different question. Sorry. One of the objectors mentioned antisocial behaviour, so I'm just concerned about the parking aspect. The car park was originally for overspill from the school, so coming and going from the school, so there wouldn't be any extra parking out of school hours. So I just want to check the car park for the shops. Is that any different? Is it going to be marked out nearer to the shops and further away from the barn, or how will it work?
So in terms of the precise detail of how the car parking arrangement and the location of the shop and the servicing, that will have to come forward as part of Reserve Matters scheme.
Thank you. Councillor Legg.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just ask about the 106 agreement and the lack of funding for primary places? Could we not split what's already there between primary and secondary, please?
To go back to the Section 106 process, Section 106 monies or requirements are based on need, and that need is identified by the County Education Authority. So if there's no need for primary spaces, which is what they're saying, then we can't require it as a Section 106 requirement. So therefore, they're identifying that there's a need for secondary, and so therefore that's what they've asked for. So in the same way as a condition has to be wholly relevant to form part of a planning permission, the Section 106 has to be justified on its own merits, and that's the reasoning why.
Councillor Legg.
Thank you. Can I ask where did they get this information from? And is it in the public domain, please?
Yeah, the consultation response, I can send that to you. I mean, we can get, if necessary, we could get it up. But I mean, they do it on the basis of they look at the needs on a 6-monthly basis and then on an annual basis, and say to us, there are X number of spaces required for children for a development. It's worked out on a formula basis. And so when there's no identified need, the Education Authority will say there's no identified need. I mean, effectively, you're questioning the County Council's Education Authority. So, and obviously, that was exactly the same that came to committee on the last occasion. So that hasn't changed.
Please, could you send me the report? Thanks.
I'd be obliged. No problem. I'll do that.
Can I just help?
Yeah, Councillor Huckabee, if you can make all comments through myself. Councillor Huckabee, can I stop you there, please? If you wish to speak, please make me aware, and then we'll allow you into the debate. Would you like to speak? Thank you, Councillor Huckabee.
For Councillor Legg, every school is designated a maximum population, and that is what the assessment against places is made against, whether or not there is spare capacity. Now, the actual population of any school is pretty high above what the usage is. So in this case, that maximum is way beyond what the overspill from these new houses will take.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I was happy when we actually had a look at this application a couple of months ago, and you know, there are a few minor changes to it since then. Nothing, to my mind, nothing massively significant, and I'm quite happy to proceed with it. We will have an opportunity later on to have a look at much more of the detail when that comes through. But as for now, with the outline, with what we've got today, I think we should be allowing them to actually push ahead with this development.
Thank you. Do I see any further comments from any committee members? So I can't see any further hands up from committee members to state they want to speak. So obviously Councillor Jones has just indicated that she would propose as per the officer's recommendation. So, and I have got a seconder, I understand, Councillor George. So we'll take a vote on the approval the application, Section 73 application, as per the amended version of conditions to set out and other conditions as listed in the current officers committee report, and the completion, and the update sheet for the planning application that's been discussed. So I've got a proposer and I've got a seconder. So if we can take it to the vote, all those in favour of this. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That brings this application for approval. So it's been approved by committee. Thank you. If any members of the public gallery would like to leave at this point, you may do so before we continue to the second part of the meeting. Thank you, members. Moving on to agenda item number 6. Can I request members to consider the appeals received and determined? And noted. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 7. Request members to consider the planning permissions circulated with the agenda. Is that noted? Thank you. We will now move into the private part of the meeting. If I could request that the press and public leave the room, that in accordance with section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting, as it is likely, in view of the nature of the business to be transacted or the nature of the proceedings, that there would be disclosed exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, indicated in brackets before each item number on the agenda. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Jones. All those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous.